It's never easy when you're up against the world and home is far away, you feel you're on your own. So it's good to know that back home they're watching you, wanting you to know you'll never be alone. We're heading for the top and aiming for the future, and we won't ever stop while we are in control. We'll fight until we drop, and always we'll remember to play the game as best we can to reach our final goal. Some people like to say that we're too small to try, but it's not always size alone that takes the pride.
I set myself 3 targets in football. One was to represent New Zealand, another was to play in the World Cup, and another one was to be a professional football player. And I realised the first 2 at a very early age. When I was 18 I played for New Zealand, and then I went to England and I signed on at Chelsea for a couple of years. So I realised those 2, but the next one was much harder.
After I saw what John had done with the New Zealand side against Mexico when they beat them, I think it was 4-0 or 4-1 at Mount Wellington grounds there, and I realised then that there was an opportunity that if you want to take it with both hands, you could go to the World Cup.
Every young football player's dream is to play in the World Cup. So to captain a side was a tremendous privilege, you know, but also a job at the same time.
I really believed in those players, and when I was asked by a journalist, he wrote a story because I said, I honestly think we've got a chance, and I think he wrote a headline that said, ANZ can dream, can't he?
This campaign would soon grab the hearts and minds of all New Zealanders. 15 qualifying matches over 9 months of incredible highs and desperate lows to reach their holy grail, qualifying for the World Cup finals in Spain in 1982. But on Anzac Day 1981, the immediate problem was Australia on a dust bowl of the pitch at Mount Smart Stadium.
I think we came back twice in that game to draw 3-3 against a side, I think, that Australia would only beaten once in 1979, and I think I'm right saying that was, I think I remember at that time, that 1979 win was the first time New Zealand beat Aussie in 25 years. So to beat them again was going to ask a bit more, wasn't it, you know? So to draw 3-3, come back twice, was a tremendous performance, really.
Across the goal, hit it in, and it's there! It's there! The goal has come for New Zealand, and it is 3-3.
I think that we really needed to win that game, and there was a sense of disappointment, even though we played pretty well in that game. You know, and it was a good game of football, but 3-3 was, you know, a couple of points dropped.
Quite honestly, we were crap. You know, like, and I think of each individual. There was a couple on the day that really stood out. Like Woody was just superb as he was all the way through the tournament. But defensively, and I was part of that defence, we were rubbish. We defended poorly. We didn't pick up. We didn't mark. We allowed 3 easy goals, and it was only just through the determination of the side as a whole, whether it was a home ground advantage, that we managed to sort of get back on track and get the draw.
It was very much back to the drawing board, and I guess that was an acceptance that although we'd taken a point, which was a valuable point, and probably a real bonus for us and a loss for Australia, we probably didn't accept that was good enough.
But at the end of the day, when you analyse the game, the better footballing side had been New Zealand. We had played more quality stuff than they had. And I remember going into the press conference with the strong contingent from Australia with the media, saying that I felt on the day we were the better football side. Pleased we've got the draw here, but I honestly believe that we can win the game when we return to Sydney, and we got a bit of criticism for that.
That game, to us, was the catalyst of our performances from there on in. We got given a chance there. You know, we scraped away with a draw. We got given a chance to be able actually to put some things right for the rest of the campaign.
And I think it was quite a few games later before there was another goal scored against us. So that worked well, and it always gave us the platform. Even in, you know, the Fiji game was a difficult game. I think Brian Turner got 3 that day, but it was hot and humid. They took us to Bar to play. They made life very difficult for us. But we started to mature and overcome those hurdles, and we dealt with things very professionally, even in Taiwan on a very difficult pitch, where it was a draw after, I think, Herbert scored a goal, which was a very good goal, which was disallowed. But we learned to deal with those sorts of problems. Magnificent performance in Jakarta in front of over 100,000 people.
I always remember the game 2-0 against Indonesia, and we played very, very well. Played very well.
It was like a rundown Wembley with about 110,000 people in, and we were winning 2-0, and the crowd are throwing slabs of rock onto the pitch, this big. They had paper cups full of pebbles that they screwed at the top, biffing them on the pitch. There was fires going in the back of the stands. They were pelting our bench with watermelon, and the bench only had netting behind them, so it was going straight through. And the guys did great.
We were showing a strong maturity by the time we hit Sydney for the return game against them, which was going to be all important.
John wanted to go into Australia quietly in the 2-0, you know, for the 2-0 victory. He thought, we'll tread lightly for this one, we'll just go in there and burgle them. But the problem was I got off the plane before him. And Dempsey said, Kevin, he said, meet, you know, the press, they want to talk. I said, oh, is that right? So I said, you're the Australian press. Have you got your pencils ready? He said, yeah, all. I said, you ready? He said, now go on yourself. And Charlie dashed down then to get John, because he's in such a panic, and John, he wanted to have this quiet entry into Australia, which had all gone up in the air, as you can imagine, but we beat them anyway, 2-0.
On the Saturday morning of the game against Australia, there's a guy called Tommy Anderson who used to write for the Sydney Morning Herald. He said New Zealand football is as good as the effluent flowing into the Sydney harbour, and that piece of cutting was taken out of the paper and put on the dressing room wall before we played.
When we went to Australia, it was a good, very, as I said, close-knitted squad. Everyone was playing well. It was starting to gel.
We were confident. We understood Guttendorf. We knew how he was going to play. We knew the restrictions that he put on his players, and we planned accordingly. We had to play well. We knew that. Anything less than 100% would not be good enough. But everything we did, we just did it slowly. We did it professionally. The first game, the goal came, and we were on our way.
Back to Mackay, the 2 Gisborne City players. Turner, a nice ball onto Mackay. Mackay nicely into Wooden. There's the lethal left foot, and it's there! A great shot from Wooden. A great shot from Wooden. It's the lethal left foot.
And I thought we were absolutely clinical. Woody's goal was great, but Turner's was probably one of the better ones of the whole tournament. It was just, and I think if you can look back on goals that are scored, to me that's the one that stands out most.
Everybody worked hard. It was a really tough side, great character, and superb goal. And I mean, I still think to this day I can't ever think I've ever seen a better headed goal than Grant Turner's.
Here's the header in the back of the net. 2-0. New Zealand 2-0.
And I can remember being the first player into grabbing hold of Grant and giving him a cuddle, and I mean it was just amazing, yeah. Because I think at that time that was the end of the game. I mean they were dead and gone, and it showed as well. And you know, it's not often you go to Australia and you beat them in their own backyard.
It was more important that the way we won as a 2-0 result as a team, and not so much as the goal for myself. I looked at that perspective to think the great result of 2-0 beating Australia and going on to the next phase was more important than the individual goal itself.
It's very rare you see goals like that, and that put us, I think, 2-0 up with not that many minutes to go, 10, 11 minutes. And I remember sitting on the bench then and looking across at Guttendorf, and I think it was the first time in that first round that you really felt fairly relaxed. We've done it, and they will not do any better than us in that we are through.
Qualification from the first phase was now in the All Whites' hands as they returned to Mount Smart Stadium for home matches against Taiwan, Indonesia and Fiji. Indonesia were beaten 5-0. That was followed by a straightforward 2-0 victory over Taiwan. Fiji arrived for the final match in the first phase, and the All Whites were in goal-scoring mood, hitting 13 past the Fijians, including 6 to skipper Steve Sumner.
I think we hit a world record that we held for some years by achieving that victory in the World Cup game.
We knew that Aussie had beaten Fiji 10-0, and about probably half a dozen of us played in Aussie. So it was in us to try and beat them by more. You know, that was, you know, can we really prove that we're better than them? And we knocked in 13. I just couldn't believe it on the day. I mean, everything I hit finished up in the back of the net. It was just one of those days. Everything you touched. I mean, it got to the stage where I was really trying to look to play somebody else in because you felt the next one was going to hit the back of the net too.
The 2-0 win against Indonesia, 13-0 against Fiji, 2-0 against Australia, 4-0 against Fiji, that sort of stuff it's just a stepping stone to building our confidence and I suppose a self-belief that as time goes on to the next stage, that we said to ourselves, well, Spain, who knows?
We'll remember to play the game as best we can to reach our final goal. We'll fight until we drop and always...
New Zealand moved through to the second phase to face Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and China. The step up in class on the field, New Zealand Television recruited the BBC's leading soccer commentator Barry Davies for the first 3 matches, including the opener, an away game in China.
I obviously had kept tabs on who was doing what in the qualification zone, so I knew that they got through the first group of matches and scored quite a lot of goals. And he said, would you like to go? And I said, I'd love to. It was really only when I was sitting on the plane bound for Hong Kong that I actually thought, hang on, what have I let myself in for here? I'm going to work for people I don't know. I'm going to see 2 teams I don't know. Probably won't get any real chance to meet up with them. Certainly I wouldn't get a chance to see the Chinese, I thought. But in fact, it all worked out rather well. I had a great time. It was a delight to be invited.
Certainly going to China and getting a draw was a big ask because they were clearly one of the favourites to progress from the second group.
We set ourselves to mark all the way through that we were just going to be defensively sound. If we get the breaks and get the goals, let's nick a 1-0 win or 2-0 win and away we go. We got the draw and I think that was a good start for us anyway.
My recollections of that game was that we were under pressure a fair bit in that game, and to come away with a 0-0 draw was certainly a vital point.
It was a good defensive performance, and what it showed me was that it was a team that had a good deal of spirit and the sort of cliche of they work for each other.
After picking up a point in China, the All Whites faced the same opponent a week later in Auckland. A strong first-half performance was capped off on the stroke of half-time with the only goal of the game.
Crowd really getting behind their side for a goal before half-time, and there's Ricky Herbert, and Ricky Herbert has got one for them.
We worked very hard on set pieces, and I think that was a huge plus to the whole team that we got it right, and it was at an important time. Great to be on the end of it and put it in the back of the net.
And the best thing about it is we had a good crowd. This is second phase football. We're now 5, 6 games away from actually getting there. So, you know, the build-up in New Zealand in terms of the public eyes, because as I said, you know, football's just a minnow sport, but there are other sports codes. We're just caught up in the whole journey of it as much as anything else, to see a New Zealand team doing well.
To beat those tidy football players, very talented, and here's this little place, New Zealand, you know, taking a massive country, great big population who loved the football, and yeah, we beat them 1-0, so it helped set us up. More belief for us, wasn't it?
I thought that they'd given themselves a platform in the grouping that they had. I knew something about football in the Middle East, that they can be very gifted, but also can be very wayward. Watching Kuwait, you could see the difficulties of organising a defence, and now it was quite clear to me that John Adshead had organised his defence.
The attitude within the training camp itself was becoming very competitive. There were situations there where everybody's working just that little bit harder. There was a bigger spring in their step, and there was a lot of people were helping each other as well.
I think you could feel from the atmosphere that there was the expectation. Hang on, we got 3 points out of the 4. This is going to be good news, and I thought this is fun. It's going to be a story, and I'm going to see these guys in Spain. There was that feeling, and in a way, I think that feeling almost ran away with them, and as a result, it was quite hard to recover from what happened against Kuwait.
It was another excellent start for New Zealand, with the reliable Steve Wooden giving the All Whites a 1-0 half-time lead against Kuwait.
Out by Walid. And a fine goal! Oh, brilliant goal by Steve Wooden! Brilliant goal! Marvellous, marvellous strike by Steve Wooden. It hardly came off the ground. And no wonder the crowd are going mad.
However, the second half proved very different, and an experience the New Zealand players found hard to accept.
And they're in a bit of trouble here, and a penalty's been given. Penalty's been given, judging from the referee's signs, that was for handball. And so Richard Wilson, who's had this record for 10 full games. The hero of the hour, they all want to congratulate him. And the crowd on their feet. 910 minutes as he faced this shot from Jassem, and he saved it.
9 minutes later, the unthinkable was to happen.
Naeem. And it hit the crossbar. And another handball given. Another handball given on the edge of the area. But the ball surely then struck hand.
There's no way there were penalties, and as far as I remember, I said so. I mean, they were ludicrous decisions.
It was never a penalty. I mean, it's. I think when you look at the footage now and the way that the ball was played in, I'm not sure what the referee expected the player to do.
I felt cheated that day. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There were penalties you couldn't get away from. I mean, sometimes if I head a ball as hard as I can at you right there, you can't disappear. It's going to hit you. You didn't play the ball played you. I felt that happened to John Hill and Steve Sumner. Steve Sumner was on the line, defending the line, and somebody headed it point blank. If it hits your arm and goes out, you can't chop your arm off.
In his own country, they may interpret, any handball as a penalty. But, there was no intent on either Hiller or myself in that game. And they, to me, should never have been penalties.
A ball surely aimed at the hand, and I really can't see how the referee could give a penalty for that.
Clearly it was disastrous, and I think when he gave that, it was like, oh, here we go again.
We got a spectator on the field throwing something at the referee. Oh dear, this we did not want to see.
The boy went to court, and the judge found him $10 for throwing the can and $20 for missing. So, I mean, everybody wanted the lad to get away. I mean, go on. I saw him throw it, and then he's going across the pitch. Go on, hope you don't catch him. I don't know if they did catch him. I don't think they made much of an effort, but no, good on him. I mean, I felt that way. It's just pent-up frustration. I think he was only feeling the same as everybody in that stadium.
And Wilson did move, but it didn't matter anyway. Ball went the other way, and Faisal has made the score 1-1.
There seemed like an injustice. And that's what I'm saying. It just seems so surreal that this had occurred. Why is it happening to us? It's almost like saying, well, what have we done to deserve that penalty against us? We've been pretty strong all the way through. We're not a nasty, violent side. We know we go out and play hard football. We're on this path and this journey, and we were successful in doing so well. The gods were looking down for us. Luck was going our way, and everything seemed so bloody rosy in the garden. And then all of a sudden, this occurs. And so we're saying, well, hold on a minute. Who did this? This shouldn't be happening, and it did. And I think that's what just rocked us.
Then, having got themselves into the position where they were going to get a point, New Zealand went chasing the game. They felt they had to win the home games, and that was their undoing.
It's curling, Jassem! And a fine goal. What about a foot or so above the ground? Got in the header. and gives Kuwait a 2-1 lead.
It was disappointing because our performance should have been at a level that we deserved a little bit more than that. And sometimes in football, it goes against you. You've got to live with it.
Well, the referee not allowing as much time for stoppages as we made it brings the game to an end to a chorus of boos. And I'm afraid his part in the game, as he's immediately surrounded by policemen, his part in the game had a sad effect for New Zealand. And
that day, I mean, look straight at the ref. I mean, I saw the ref after the game. These days, I think he'd be fined about $10,000 for what I said to the ref after the game.
Yeah, I think you could sense within the team that this was a real frustration. This was something that we didn't want to accept. It wasn't right, and we'd worked so hard to think that something like this could actually spoil it all.
It didn't look 100%, and you know it's hard to say that he was cheating or he wasn't cheating, but it just seemed to be going. The bad decisions were all one way.
It was one of the only games that I played in that I thought the referee was dodgy.
Mr. Sidaso, it's not a name that I suppose it's indelibly written in New Zealand football history, but he belongs possibly with a gentleman called Ali Bennacer, who didn't note the hand of God from Maradona.
We heard loads of things. I mean, I heard that they had they arrived on their own jet, can't remember exactly, with a briefcase full of money, 400,000 American dollars. And I heard that from the staff at the hotel we were at, the Senate same place. And they left on. Now, they must have been great spenders.
I don't know about money, but I think there was some sort of reward changed hands, definitely.
The interesting thing for me is that back then, you never thought that at all. In football, you just thought, nah, it's football, it's straight, it's international football, doesn't happen. But of course, as we've gone on now, we've seen it in all sorts of games. I mean, there's something going off now in Italy, and there was something last year in Germany, you know. So back then, no, we didn't think so. It was only after that we heard all these things, and you look at those things, and I still like to think that it was the referee's interpretation of the rules and he got it wrong.
It's like everything else. If you want to achieve something, you've got to overcome these hurdles. And to us, that was a major hurdle. And sure, you're disappointed, you're angry, you have a whole range of emotions running through your body. You think, is this the end of the World Cup for me? But I think with John and Kevin, they all geared you up and said, look, you know, it's just another hurdle to overcome.
A 6-week break brought no improvement in the All Whites' prospects when they faced Saudi Arabia at home. An early Billy McClure penalty seemed to have righted the ship.
Oh, what a start. 5 minutes gone.
But this Saudi team proved tough opposition, and 2 first-half goals of their own had the Kiwis rocking.
Here's that man Marjad, he's got 3. Oh, my goodness me. New Zealand have been punished by this Saudi striker.
We were down, we were done, we were dead and buried.
But again, a set play late, I think 89th, 87th minute, something like that.
Trying to find Sumner, who knocks it on. Herbert! What a goal! He's done it again, Ricky Herbert. A spectacular header, and it's 2-2.
That gave us a lifeline, actually. I mean, if we'd lost that game, effectively we were out of contention.
You know, we're just hanging there by the balance. And I suppose that's the ebb and flow of the journey that we had. You know, it was all great, and then all of a sudden it takes a dip. And then, you know, we need to have a little bit of luck or work hard to get back where we need to be, and we had that bit of luck. And we're still, you know, on that journey. It was difficult, you know, that the options, it was like, you know, who wants to be a millionaire? You had phone a friend, ask the audience something else, and we just lost 2 of our lifelines. We're down to, you know, phone a friend.
And that friend proved to be Winton Rufer. At that time, a teenager trying to secure a professional contract in England with Norwich City.
John was good at introducing players like that, wasn't he? And introduced a star and introduced a player that could change the game.
Because we'd gone flat up front. You know, we'd gone flat. Grant Turner was a midfield player we'd started putting up front to get some firepower. We'd got Stevie Wood in, and Rufer gave us that injection. You know, he came at the right time. We're looking for somebody like him, and he arrived.
I think what Winton brought into the side was that sort of that youth factor, that ability to do something that could actually turn a game.
And I'd always felt if goals became the absolute priority, then I would tend to look at him. I remember speaking to Steve Sumner about it. Didn't know him. You know, what sort of a gamble is this? Maybe leaving somebody like Billy McClure at home and taking in a kid. You know, and I remember Sumner thinking, well, he better be some player if you're going to do that.
To bring someone in new that was really untried at that level may really weaken the side.
And I said to him going to training that day, this is probably the most important training session of your life, son. You've got a lot of proving to do to these players. They've come a long way.
John said, Rado, penalty competition. So all the guys duck away and grab a ball, and he goes, Winton, first one, you take it. Because this was one of his first sessions, if not the first session, with the full international side. And he goes, yep, Winton, you take a penalty. And Winton goes, puts the ball down, turns round to John and goes, which foot? And John went, oh, left foot. And Winton stepped back and he went, which way? And John went, oh, just put the bloody thing in the net, would you? So Winton strolled up, smacked with the outside of his left foot and tucked into the bottom right-hand corner as the keeper was there, you know, and stuck it away. And that's how confident the young fella was. 18 years old, I think 18, came in, great confidence, tremendous athlete and great skill.
I remember getting back on the bus, going back to the hotel, and somebody just, in his way in those days, just sort of walked past me and sort of grunted, he can play. and of course, we never looked back with Winton. He came in, he was brought in to score goals, and he never stopped scoring goals.
The All Whites headed to the Middle East for their final 2 qualifying matches against Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, short on confidence and needing 2 wins to guarantee a spot in the World Cup finals. But they lost an early goal in the opening game in Kuwait in intimidating circumstances.
It was pretty hostile. I remember being on the pitch before that game very, very clearly, and we weren't liked at all.
The crowd really weren't happy with us there, and they had all sorts of signs around the ground. You may have heard it from others, you know, go home to your kangaroos, and so they really didn't know where New Zealand was. And they were firing rockets across the park, they were throwing things on. It was a real hostile crowd who wanted to give us more back than their players got back in New Zealand.
We got booed non-stop and things thrown at us. I've never had as many things thrown at me in a game as that in the dugout. I mean, they were throwing bones and everything. They can't have been pork bones, it must have been sheep bones, but I'll tell you what, they were throwing things at the dugout. They were thumping off the back of the dugout and rocking the dugout, and there's 30,000 people, because it was a tight little stadium, a club ground. And of course we took it to them and got the first. Someone slammed in a free kick.
Sumner has hit a marvellous goal for New Zealand. An absolutely magnificent goal by the skipper.
Always used to ask a referee before the game, do you allow quick free kicks? And they would say something like, yes, but if you take it and staff up, that's gone. I then knew we could take it early, even before they were organised. And I guess my own view was that if we could stick it in the back of the net, the referee then decided to whether it was legit or not. And at that time, I remember saying to Woody, just touch it, you know, and he did just touch it, and I caught it right, and it finished up in the top corner. And maybe best free kick I ever took. I remember Woody at the time saying, ho, the skipper's got some skill.
Turn forward towards winning, Rufer nearly on the end of it. It comes again, here's Rufer, can he turn and get in a shot? Oh, he scored! Winton Rufer has scored, and New Zealand has taken the lead with 2 goals in the space of 90 seconds.
And at one stage it was 2-1, I thought we were going to do it. And then Richard Wilson, he misjudged terribly a corner.
As another corner comes over, Wilson climbing high again, didn't reach it, it's gone in, it's gone in. Kuwait have scored a late equaliser. Oh, what a terrible, terrible blow. What a terrible setback for New Zealand.
And it was 2-2. And that put me in a real foul mood for the night, because I thought we deserved to do it and we didn't do it. And at that stage we got let down simply by goalkeeping error. So that was a bit, that night I wasn't too happy, I remember that. And it's not as if you had much to do in Kuwait City. You couldn't get a drink anywhere and there's nowhere to go. So he just used to fester basically in and around the hotel.
Just get this one away, and when it hits the back of the net, that's when it hits the middle of your stomach and you think, my God, no, it's gone.
We were actually totally shattered. When you walked into the changing shed, there was people in tears, and I'll admit I was in tears. At that stage, I thought then that we had gone. You know, you had to beat Saudi Arabia by 5 goals. We didn't look like doing that, especially away from home in their conditions. And it was like the tears just kept running down. I said, you know, we've been here, we've done that, and we're almost over the hill, and yet we're not. It's just gone.
And then in the dressing room after was pandemonium. You know, Fallon had a piece of Richard for letting it in. He thought that he'd actually let the side down with the cross. He came out for that cross. And maybe, you know, maybe they had to be separated because, you know, the tension was that high. We got that far. We've been on this roller coaster, haven't we? Even in that game, we were down, then we were up, and then we were down again. And, yeah, I mean, it meant that much to people. It meant that much to them. And nothing more than that. And I think at that stage, maybe Fal thought that was our chances going out the window.
As far as I'm concerned, we got let down there, and we should have done better. We should have won. We drew 2-2, and it put us right now under the gun because we had to go to Saudi Arabia. And you start going back now, that's when we do start querying it and thinking, crikey, we've now got to win 5-0 tomorrow. Now that is tooth fairy stuff. I mean, up to that stage of the campaign, it's always possible, but now you're thinking to yourself, we've got to really perform now. And I thought, well, I don't know if... Even I started now. I've got a lot of self-belief. But I started saying, that, oh, it's in the hands of the gods now. 5-0.
A lot of people said we'd never make it through. Said it was just a great impossibility. We'll fight until we drop.
The All Whites now headed to Saudi Arabia for their final qualifying match, needing to win by 5 goals to force a play-off with China for the final berth in Spain.
Wouldn't say that I wrote them off, but clearly if they were going to make it, it was going to be the hard way.
There were some doubts. That was the time we had some doubts. When the 5 goals had to be scored, we had some doubts.
Whatever happens now, we've done better. We've gone further than anybody dreamed. You know, we can travel back there with our heads so high it's not funny. And the thing is, we will come out of Saudi Arabia with a win, and we'll have done better and further than any New Zealand team's ever done in its life. And we just sowed a seed that Saudi was about winning, but it was never really about qualifying.
And I can't tell you why, but something happened between Kuwait and Saudi in that, I don't know how many, but some of the guys, it might have just been, you know, between 3 or 4 people in a bedroom at the time saying, well, why can't it happen to us?
John said, well, we've come a long way. We've given it our best shot. I'd like us guys to go away if we can get a victory. If we can get a victory like 2-0, then I think that we're going to satisfy ourselves that we've done the best that we can. And I think we're going to still please the New Zealand public because, you know, this roller coaster ride, while it might end here, has been a great roller coaster ride. It's given a lot of profile to New Zealand football, and you guys have done me proud. That was the talk. So, you know, if you actually just think about what he was saying to you, he said, well, yeah, you know, it'd be nice to get a win, but you know, there's still some other stuff that we could have done. He just left that door open to say, for us to say, yeah, 2-0 would be really nice. It'd be great if we get 5, though.
I mean, it's not to just go away and win, but to actually win 5-0 in the middle of the desert, kick off lunchtime, in a stadium that was pure white. And I never forget the stadium because you could hardly open. It was that bright in the midday sun in Riyadh. It was just a white stadium and it was just dazzling.
It was just concrete all the way around. And we thought things were a little bit funny on the AstroTurf. And he found out that they'd taken all the padding from underneath the AstroTurf out. And when you put your foot down, it stops. Okay, but inside your socks, you get a friction backwards and forwards because you're stopping so quickly on these boots. So you finish up at half-time, there's about 8 to 10 players had their boots taken off and put your feet into ice buckets to stop the bleeding and blisters. And the water was virtually red at half-time. That's how physically demanding it was without any padding in there.
So we're complete disadvantage here. But again, they never thought too much about it. We went out and played. And we sat on the bench, and 1 went in and 2 went in, and we're not doing bad here.
Here's Woodin. Now, can they press home this early advantage? As Woodin crosses dangerously. Oh, the ball knocked straight back to Brian Turner, and it's 2! Down for Woodin. Can it come to his left foot? It does. Oh, it's in! Woodin with the confidence to go it alone and chips it across the goal mouth. Oh, and it runs loose, and it's 4! It's 4 to New Zealand! Rufer forcing it home after Woodin's cross come shot had been dropped by the goalkeeper. And it's difficult to believe, but it's really happening. On the ball running through here, and in goes Woodin and clips it goalwards, and again collected an injury, and in fact the referee has given a penalty.
I can remember putting the ball on the spot, and the referee was a Dutchman, I think, and the ball kept on rolling off the spot, and I couldn't keep the ball still. My hands were doing that, and I was trying to put the ball down, and the referee said, "Take it easy, number 4, take it easy." And I just looked up, you know, I had my head down like that, and I just looked up like that. And he said, "Take it easy." And I just put the ball down, and it stayed there this time, and I stepped back. It was the only penalty that I ever sort of thought, what happens if I miss?
New Zealand's most capped player ever with an absolutely vital spot kick. And he's got it! It's 5-0! Brian Turner has scored, and the celebrations amongst the New Zealand players have started.
5-0 at half-time, it's bloody fairyland, this is.
You're coming off that pitch at half-time, and it's almost like it's 5-0. It's, you know, pinch the skin material.
I thought Charlie must have bought them off. And he always says afterwards, I said, "Crikey, did you know something I don't know?" Half-time, 5-0.
Charlie Dempsey said to me, I think it was before the game, in his own, because he comes in the dressing room every now and again in his Scottish accent, he says, "Hey, Bobby," he says, if we score 5 goals, I'll kiss your ass." And so at half-time, you can imagine what I said. He's over there, I mean, you, here, like this. And so that was just a little joke that we had.
I think I went round the side of the lockers and thought, I think I'll give myself a smack. I just couldn't believe 5-0. I mean, now we didn't know whether to go forward and get the 6th, or don't drop one. Because if they get one, you're out. And if we score one, we're through. So I mean, we're on 10 to hooks there. And then, unbelievably, I mean, we at the bar, they at the bar, nobody scored a goal.
The All Whites now face China in a playoff on neutral territory in Singapore to decide the 24th and final country to qualify for the World Cup finals.
And we trained on the stadium that morning, and we're walking out of the ground, and China's dressing room is there wide open, and there's a blackboard at the end of it, and Fowl just walked in and wrote New Zealand 2, China 0 on it. So they'd see that as soon as they walked in, which might have worked a little bit from the big man. I don't know whether it did.
We were confident because of the last 2 results that we had, but it was a different arena. It was a one-off game, and it was a cup final, and we took the game like a cup final.
There was another packed house, 80,000–90,000 people in the stadium, and practically all Chinese.
I think we felt we were physically stronger, more powerful. We would ask questions of them physically in terms of sheer endeavour, willingness to go that extra yard, to throw ourselves into a tackle, to go for a header. I think we were ready.
Tonight you forget everybody. You know, don't worry about sponsors, don't worry about what's there. We've played 14 games. And now it doesn't matter what we did in those 14 games, it means absolutely nothing. This night is going to decide everything that you're going to deny. So this night is for you. It's all about you. Do you want to go to Spain or don't you want to go to Spain? That is the question that you have to answer. If the answer to that is yes, then you're going to put on a performance tonight that is deserved of going there. It's not about doing it for anybody. It's not the FA, it's not me, it's not Kevin, it's you.
Steve Woodin, good chance, and that's a goal!
The Woodin goal was typical Steve Woodin. Half chance, prop, left foot of his. Bottom right-hand corner, yeah, I've seen it time and time again. And when we got into half-time, and I remember John saying, "Everybody calm down, just relax." And he goes, "The biggest problem I can see now is if we score again." And we're sort of looking at each other and going, "Hang on a minute, if we score again, that's 2-0 up." And he said that the reason I'm saying this is because at 2-0 up, they've got nothing to lose. They will throw the kitchen sink at you after that. They might as well lose by 4 as lose by 2 because it's a one-off game. And he has never been so right in his life.
Turner on for Rufer. Rufer with a chance, and that's a great goal.
It was a great goal, and it was actually a set move. Not a set play, but a set move. Richard would knock it long, Grant would come on off the line, look for a little nick, and Woody and Winton would run off him. Brilliant. Winton got free and belted it in from, what, 25 metres, round the top corner. At that time, I thought we maybe had that one, believe it or not. I think, man, we've got this.
New Zealand is on the 6-yard line. Sustained pressure from China.
I think it was an indirect free kick inside the box. And I do not ever remember seeing a ball being hit so hard. And it was in the back of the net before anybody could move. It was a great shot. And then at that stage again, it was like, well, we had nothing left. And I decided there and then that we were going to change things at the back, because I didn't feel that we could have survived half an hour more, but we could get through another 10 minutes. All hands on deck, keep it away, work hard, and can we get over the line? 10 minutes to go. The guys were brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
One player who missed the playoff with China was Brian Turner, who was suspended for the match and had to watch the game on television from New Zealand.
When it got to 2-0, I was up and down, and I was like a cat on hot bricks, of course, and I thought, gee whiz, we're going to do this. And then when they scored, it was too much for me. I couldn't watch it. And my wife, she was living at her mother's house in Sandringham, in Hulse Avenue. And when it got to 2-1, I said, I can't watch it. There was about, I don't know, 20 minutes to go or something like that. I said, I can't watch it. I just got to go. So I walked out of her house and I walked down Sandringham Road, and all the lights were on in the houses, and I was like this. I didn't want to hear anything, I didn't want to see anything, I didn't want to know anything. And I got to Eden Park, and I sort of had a look, and I thought, by the time I get home, the game should just about be over. And it was just absolutely uncanny. I walked back from Eden Park down to Hulse Avenue, and I grabbed hold of the gate, and the front door opened. My wife, she came out. And I said to her, oh, what's happened? She said, you qualified. And, you know, I mean, I'm emotional now, because you couldn't help yourself. You know, it was just something that was so special, you know, and it was a huge feeling, huge relief, you know, wonderful, wonderful thing.
You know, because you try and think about what it actually means, you know, for the first New Zealand team ever to go to a World Cup, which is the biggest, most prolific tournament in the whole wide world in sport.
Everybody's dream come true again at the World Cup. I think I might have had a bit of a tear. I think I probably did. It was unbelievable. I didn't think it could happen.
And I think Kevin Fallon summed it up really well. He was walking away and he was being filmed by a cameraman, and he said the smallest country in the world just beat the biggest country in the world.
I think it was a dream for all of us. It was a dream for New Zealand. I mean, it was a huge, huge moment. As I say, it was the biggest stage in the world. It's bigger than the Olympics. It's huge, and we got a great group. Everyone was panicking about the group. We weren't. We were thinking this is great.
We never knew how good we were at that level and what they might do to us. You know, it's like getting somebody's run a bath for you. You don't know how hard it is, you know, till you put your foot in there. And it was like that for us.
I've got to hand it to the three sides that we played. The honour was given to us that they fielded their strongest sides possible. They didn't pull any of their players, so we were playing against the top 11 players that Russia, Scotland and Brazil could play against us.
When we played Brazil, we came out next to them in the tunnel, and that was scoring a goal and coming out next to them was they'd be my two biggest highlights. You know.
And here's Woodin again. The ball will stay for him, and he puts it in!
So again, here we were, this lads, you know, with a bit of character, fought their way back against guys who we really only saw on TV. You know, they were household names here. You know, Souness, Dalglish, Strachan, great players. And here was us from the other side of the world, clawed back to 3-2. It was enough for them that they were having a go at each other.
I thought we could nick something, and it would have been fabulous to get 3-3 now, but it wasn't to be.
Our championship we'd won by getting there, and if we're there, we'd rather play against the best teams than some of the smaller teams. So, I mean, the challenge to play Brazil was immense. And I mean, from my perspective, coming on for 20 minutes or half an hour and finishing my career playing for New Zealand against the best team in the world, I mean, there's no better way to sort of cease playing for your country.
And here's Turner, and he's just got it against the legs of Cerezo.
I remember thinking, Zico, I haven't seen much of him, and all of a sudden he did that scissors kick in the next minute, and I just about got it, and you know, I got my fingertips to it and everything like that, and I would save that. We wouldn't be sitting here now. I would have carried on running.
It was the fantastic crowd. I mean, there's certain things you always remember, and the great Brazilian sides played with a rhythm, and nobody will believe this when you tell them this, but they actually played to the music. The music was beating, and the passing got quicker as it got near the goal. So the drums sort of roll slowly, and it gathers speed, the passing gathers speed. So they play to the beat of the band. Even to this day, there's a lot of people say that was one of the greatest Brazilian sides. But it was an amazing day, and we bowed out, and it was no great shame to lose to great players like that.
It was important too that the world public sort of thought we were an okay side. We went there and losing 8-0 as, you know, Saudi have done in more recent World Cups. But we're actually there with some credibility, and we might have been ranked near the bottom, if not the bottom, but we deserve to be there.
From the challenging, and scores!
I remember turning around, you know, and going back to the halfway line, and it was, you know, a little self-indulgent, really. But, you know, my parents lived in the UK, and they made their way across from Spain, from the UK to Spain. And I knew sort of whereabouts they were, approximately. So I just happened to sort of glance across. I was running back, you know. And there was my father stood up with both arms up. It was cute. He'll remember it forever.
We were treated like the best players in the world. And we'd come from a country like New Zealand, and football had always been like, a secondary sport, so to speak. And suddenly we're in Spain, and we have police escorts everywhere we go. We have security people, and you're treated just like the best players in the world. And it was a wonderful experience. I mean, we didn't want for anything.
Here we are, essentially, a bunch of part-timers and amateurs. Some trying to earn a few bob in Australia. Rest of the guys in New Zealand trying to, you know, piece this great journey together, and with guys that were really tough, mentally tough lads, hard. I used to say, so what makes a good side? I said, hard-nosed blokes who can play a bit, and play a bit is like an understatement. Those lads were great.
So I tell you, it's a story. We were meant. We got there, which is great, so I can say this with confidence, but we were actually meant to get there. We were meant, for all these hardships that we had, through everyone's own personal life, for that 18 months, caught the nation. You know, they were watching. As I said, it was like a soap, but it was better than that. You know, for us, it was just, yeah, it was the best moment I've had in my life.
Give the people a quality product and give them a few results, and they will follow you. You build it and they will come. And the people came, and it all came together. And it was 18 months of our life that just never stopped. We were battered. You couldn't write it. It would never fit into a book, the highs and the lows of it, the disappointments, the joys. But it wasn't me, it wasn't Charlie, it wasn't Kevin, it wasn't just the players. It was the whole that came together to produce something that I hope very much we can produce again.
A lot of people said we'd never make it through, said it was just a great impossibility. as we pressed ahead. They saw what we could do, and what was once a dream became reality. And we're heading for the top and aiming for the future, and we won't ever stop while we are in control. We will fight until we drop, and always will remember to play